Hey all, Occida here. I'm sure most of you know that Poisonous Chasm was just added to FE2 a few moments ago, and I wanted to give you all a few tips and tricks for the strategies and the principles that I kept in mind when I was trying to beat the map for the first time. The map is way more difficult than Blue Moon, and honestly I feel like some of the sections need to be toned down a little bit before it starts being fun and a lot more accessible to most players. The map itself is already pretty fun, there's just a couple things that I would think need to be changed. But let's go ahead and get into the tips and tricks that I have. First of all, and this is not something that I want to simply say to people, but you're going to have to memorize this map. It's so difficult, and it has such strict timing, that if you end up just wasting half a second just looking around trying to figure out where to go, that half second will probably spell your demise, because a lot of the times when I was completing the run with some pretty average lines and some pretty average footwork, I would only have maybe half a second, maybe 3/4 of a second inside of the exit box before the lava came up and killed me. And pretty much that means you have maybe a half-second margin of error for the entire map, which is way lower compared to any other map, even Blue Moon, that's in-game right now. So by memorizing the map, you stop having the situations where you need to stop and take a look at everything else. It ends up saving you a good bit of time at the end. Number 2, you need to learn a couple of the ways to save time in this map. I wouldn't exactly call them shortcuts. There aren't really any big shortcuts with this map. I'll let you guys know if there are. But pretty much there are 2 major sections that I figured out that save a good bit of time. The first one is right before the first button. When you get to these jumps right here on the wooden plank, you can actually go around this pillar and it will save a decent bit of time. It's not like 2 whole seconds, but again, it's not nothing, and you need every single second you can get on this map. Number 2 is going to be at the end. Instead of taking the long route for this section, I simply jump on the lower box, and then I jump up onto the stone, and then I can make this big diagonal jump pretty consistently. It's not too difficult, but it saves a ton of time, so you should attempt to do it every single time. Number 3, you definitely need to practice and at least get somewhat familiar with these wall jumps that happen after the second button. They're kind of like the Blue Moon wall jumps where you have to go forwards instead of upwards, but it's also a lot more difficult because not only are they spaced out farther, but you also have to travel a further distance compared to Blue Moon. So pretty much my strategy for these wall jumps is I start by going as far as I can before hitting the left wall. Then I jump left, right, and then left. And once I leave the left wall the second time, I try to hit the ground over here, the little diagonal corner of ground, because you can actually land on that. And you want to spend as little time on the wall jumps as you possibly can, because again, you're super strapped for time on this map. So any sort of time where you can get a little bit ahead or try to minimize loss of time is going to be extremely important on this map. Number 4, you need to remember not to hold the spacebar on this map. There's a lot of maps such as Sinking Ship where you can hold the spacebar and get away with a lot of stuff. But on this map, the jumps are so long that you end up needing to always time every single jump individually. It's a bit of a skill that most regular hobbyists already have, but I know a lot of new players either like to walk up to a ledge and wait and then jump, or they like to just hold the spacebar and continue going forwards. Both of these strategies are not going to work out very well because, first of all, if you're stopping in place, you're going to end up losing time and dying at the end. And second of all, if you are holding a spacebar, you might not get the distance you need in each jump to actually get to the next platform. And also, when you pass the third button, when you get to this big pipe right here, my first instinct is to just hold the spacebar and continue going forwards, because when you're on a slope, you tend to get slowed down when you're not in the air. But there's actually a lantern here that is still can collide true, and if you end up jumping on this pipe, you will hit the lantern and just kind of slide down across it, which will end up costing you a good bit of time. And again, it's all about saving just the fractions of seconds that let you get to the end of the map before everything collapses. So you need to make sure that you just don't jump there. Number 5, this is a little bit pricier compared to all the other tips on this list, but if you have the ability to get a sword tank, I highly recommend using it because this map is very dark and visibility can be a problem for some people. My personal opinion is that the green one would be best for this map. It's 600 gems, which is a lot of gems. But if you have the ability to get any of the swords, you should definitely use them. The blue one also works pretty well, and of course the rainbow sword would always be best because it's simply a white light, it's not colored. But if I had to choose from the 3 colored ones, I would definitely choose the green one above the other 2, especially because you don't need VIP for it. And number 6, pretty much you need to just try not to stress out with this map. You're going to make a lot of silly mistakes when you're trying to beat the map for the first time. And when those happen, it's important not to get angry. You can always just take a breath, try to figure out what you did really well with that run, and try to figure out what you need to improve on for future runs, keeping those things in mind so you can actually get further and further along with the map each time. And I would also recommend playing Blue Moon sometimes in the middle of runs. I know it's kind of a waste of intensity gems and stuff like that, but Blue Moon is first of all a lot easier, so by beating a different crazy map, it can be a nice boost to confidence. But also, Blue Moon is a good place to practice really long jumps, and I was saying in the earlier points that some of the jumps are pretty long and you can't exactly hold the spacebar for them. So similar to Blue Moon, it's just a good way to practice really long jumps. There's also a few multiplayer specific tips I wanted to give you guys. First of all, and this is kind of a given, but you should definitely turn off auras, because while seeing through other players can be a little bit difficult at times, if all of those players have auras on and they're super bright and super big, it's going to be practically impossible to see where you are compared to everyone else. So pretty much regardless of what happens, I like to keep auras turned off. When it comes to the other players though, sometimes I'll ghost them. I really don't like to ghost them though. So me personally, I've actually been learning to try and track myself within a group of players just by remembering what my inputs are. And it's like a hypothetical situation where everyone's slowly going towards the right and I'm still going straight. So I'm not going to the right, I'm still going forward, so I'll be on the left. And that means in the big group I can kind of see myself on the left and then I know where I am, so I know how exactly I can be performing the obby from then on out. And finally, with multiplayer, button 3 can be a little bit tricky to learn, especially because there's a falling platform there. That should really be fixed, to be honest, but if you're the first player there, or if you're like the designated player who gets the 3rd button, what you want to do is you shouldn't wait for anyone. And that seems a little counterintuitive because the platform right before the button falls behind you. But if you see in this image, everyone here knows what to do. They're actually waiting on the flat platform. And once you press the button, you actually have to jump onto that platform to get to the next button. So it's like simultaneously waiting behind for someone to get the button, but also you're waiting in front of them. So when someone else tries to get the 3rd button, just stand on that platform there. It's not even a group button, so it shouldn't be much of an issue. And that's pretty much it for all the tips and tricks I have. I'm going to show you guys a full run of the map, and I hope you enjoy. Thanks so much for listening.